Good morning. We're live. Thanks for joining us this morning, this post-Thanksgiving morning. This morning, we're talking about reentry for families, students, parents, reentry post-COVID. This is the first marking period that kids have been back in school full-time. For some of us, we're just concentrating on reentry since Thanksgiving because having the 4 days off was substantial enough. So please share with us your stories about reentry, your successes, your triumphs, your challenges, any funny stories you have or tips, because we know a lot of families are, some are struggling and some are having a wonderful time being back to routine. I'll start. When I think about reentry and teens, I think about the transitions that a lot of teens miss during virtual schooling. A lot of teens transitioned from junior high to high school to college, or elementary to middle school, and they didn't get the rites of passage, the rituals, but also some of them just weren't properly prepared for the transition. So they may have entered virtual school in elementary or middle school or high school, and then now they've re-entered in the next level and they weren't necessarily prepared. And a lot of them are scared. And I hear from educators that that's manifesting in behavioral issues and academic issues. And I know that we tell parents that you should keep a healthy distance, especially each time they transition. You're supposed to distance a little more. But if you notice something with your teen, maybe you should step back in as you would have before instead of keeping that distance, because it may not feel quite the way it should for them. They transitioned without preparation, and some of them are very frightened about that. We're transitioning in our home during this first year back, where we're trying to get everything together and we're applying to college at the same time. And it's kind of odd because we don't quite feel like we're at high school the way we used to be, and we're trying to get ready for something else. I feel for the ones who made the leap and didn't get this year to get their footing. At least we have a year to get the footing. I'm going to send this over to Eka.
Good morning. So as I have said before, I have two daughters, and one of them spent almost a year and a half in doing virtual college, which was really hard for her. And then after she graduated, which was very sad, graduation, pouring rain outside, wearing a mask. It was out in an outdoor baseball stadium, and in each section they had 10 students that were all sitting 6 rows apart. It was just the whole thing. So now she's transitioned into a work life, and that's been really difficult for her because she's been at home doing school, and now she works virtually 2 days a week, and then 3 days a week she's in the office. And so that even 3 people is a lot for her sometimes. So that has been a change for her. And plus now she has to leave the house. So she's complaining about having to commute, which she hasn't done for a long time. My other daughter has basically, she has been out in the general public and hasn't really had a transition because it was just the way it is, except that she has a lot more hours of work now. She's an airline pilot, so now the flights are full. Her transition has actually been dealing with people who are not always so nice, as we've heard and seen on the news. And that's been a transition because she's like, why are people so mean? So that's been a transition. Now, me personally, I'm having transition issues in that I'm not ready yet to take off my face cover. And I know everyone's got their own level of how they feel. And I actually had someone say something to me about it. And I kind of got my witch on and said kind of like, you know what, if I want to wear this, I'm going to wear this, And so everyone, I think, has a different level of how they are going through this and how they're coming out of it. And I just think we just need to be patient with everybody. And I also think we need to be kind. So there's my, PSA for the day. I'm going to sit down to my friend Jen.
Thank you, Eka. Patience and kindness. Oh my gosh, yes, we can use these all the time, but they have never been in more dire need and shorter supply if for so many people. So those were great words of wisdom. I'm going to tell you that I have one child who is so much happier this year than before. The transition, and this is a child who has always struggled with transitions. Going back to school, she was the one who cried every day for weeks as a young student. Getting on the school bus, it was just hard, switching gears and going into school after having the summer off or the winter break or whatever it was. She has never been happier at school because she had the experience of the remote school, which was terrible. And now being back in person is so much more delightful. And there's something that feels more normal about it. In fact, it's so normal that they relaxed a little too much. And she's at college. So everybody on campus got what they call the frat flu, which is not, I think that's a generic term. Doesn't mean that she went to a frat party, but just everybody has it on campus. But even that little bit of normalcy made things feel like, oh, we're back to normal times. We're not. We know that. But that little extra bit of being able to be in person with classes and see her peers and do real things with real people has boosted her mood so tremendously. And I think it actually gave her a renewed enthusiasm for school that she might not have had if it had never gone away. So little tiny bit of a silver lining there, I guess. But yes, in general, I think I am hearing it's all over the board. There are many students who are really struggling. There are some who are acting out, who would not normally act out. And I think all of the experts that we deal with in this space say a lot of things that Kamira said, which is you may have to step back in a little bit more now than, and that's contrary to the advice we often give, but they've been left to their own devices quite literally for much of this pandemic, and they are craving more interaction. They may not show it in the way that we would like them to show it, but I think that it is sort of a cry for help for some of these students when they act out in ways that they haven't before. So I will let Sue share. I think we have a couple of people who chimed in.
Okay, so Jennifer, we're just going to share. Well, here it goes. I'm having trouble with my computer. Jennifer, I'm really sorry to hear this. Your teenager attacked you last week after being on Zoloft. Now, what I would suggest is whoever prescribed the Zoloft, you've got to go back to them, because all medication, we have our own DNA and how we respond to it. So I would go back to whoever prescribed the medication. And also, we're not familiar with people in Massachusetts. I know there's a lot of online places that you can go to now where you might be able to find somebody, but I would also suggest your primary care doctor maybe can connect you to somebody. That's generally the advice we give, but good luck to you. We're thinking of you. And absolutely, we're not back to normal times. Jen, did you say real people? Someone said real people, and Jennifer wants to know, what did you mean by that?
I may have, and if so, I mean like in-person people is what I mean by that, as opposed to just interacting with people virtually.
Okay, so Jennifer, good luck. We're thinking of you. We're sending our love your way. In terms of reentry, I did ask people to respond to this just to hear what was going on. So I spoke to one teacher who said for sure they're still dealing with the fallout, that the kids are still not adjusting so well, but neither are the parents, is what she said. And I can say from my own perspective, I've gone to things where I haven't worn a mask and felt so vulnerable, and then gone back to the same setting with a mask and hate wearing the mask. So and no one else was wearing masks, by the way. I was at a Cavs game. The stadium was full. You could count the number of people you could see around you wearing masks, and it was a full stadium. So it's like, there's no requirement. It feels like things are back to normal. And I kept thinking, but we're not. And is it worth being here without a mask and getting COVID? Anyway, it's just so unnerving. I will tell you two stories. One is that someone was saying that their son has a girlfriend who isn't vaccinated. The family will not they're opposed to vaccinations. And it's creating a huge problem in those two families, because what do? Do you let your kid keep seeing the girlfriend? Not that you can stop it, but those situations are so fraught. We had over Thanksgiving, a kid who is a freshman in college, and she was saying, I remember always hearing like we shouldn't evaluate our kids' college experience until Thanksgiving, that's the time when they come home, and they might even say to you at the end of the weekend, okay, I'm going to go home now, which always broke my heart. Like, isn't this your home? But she was saying she hasn't found her crew yet.
I think Sue froze. Does anybody
right.
else?
I can go ahead while Sue's unfreezing.
Okay.
So I feel like I'm interrupting Sue, even though I'm not. I want to echo what a lot of folks have said. We're not back at normal. And I know from the teenagers in my circle, my whole circle of family and friends, I'm seeing a lot of struggles with coming back to life. And I think that's partly there. I feel like it's emotional, social, academic. Like last year, my high schooler didn't really have a lot of homework because the kids had so much going on already. So now it's like transitioning to a heavier workload. And then for some other kids, it's like they've almost forgotten how to socialize, like how to relate to people in real life and, have a back and forth conversation even sometimes. And I would agree that it's not the time to say, okay, they'll be fine, they'll figure it out. It might be the time to say, let's really think about how I can support this kid and in a move towards independence, but in a nurturing way. I mean, sometimes you're pushing them and sometimes you're embracing them a little more. And this might be a time to sort of embrace them and help them find their strength again. And I just, on a lighter note, for my transition, my reentry, I don't know what to wear. The few times that I'm going out to like a restaurant for the, I'm like, what did I wear in before times? Everything I wear is like soft pants or maybe jeans. Like, is this what I wore when I went out? I have no idea. And it's not like I got rid of everything in my closet. So what happened? I don't know if it's because the mom jeans came back and I don't want to have anything to do with that. And everything in the store is prairie dresses and weird. Bleh. So I'm having my own deep problems too.
You know what? I got something too, Sharon.
Yes.
Go ahead.
We went somewhere where it was a little bit fancy, and I pulled out like my fancy big girl shoes, and I was like, who am I kidding? These hurt my feet. They're pointy. They're high heeled. I want to wear my slippers or my flat shoes. I've forgotten like shoes thing. I have all these shoes. I go, where did I wear these? Like, stilettos, but they're not. They're this high. But after wearing, flat shoes, I feel like I'm, like walking a runway or something with them. So I'm having the shoe issue.
I have a little bit of good news for you on this front, Sharon, which is that I think it's good news. I don't know. Maybe it's not. I think that everybody has relaxed their dress code. And the way I've measured this is that we went to a concert at Severance Hall to hear the Cleveland Orchestra, which is one of the last places where people typically do dress very nicely. And it usually skews a little older, the crowd that might not even own jeans, perhaps. But I felt comfortable in dress jeans and a sweater because even the conductor is not wearing a full tuxedo anymore. The conductors now wear like a nice looking outfit, but like with a casual Mandarin collar instead of the full tux. So, I mean, I think you can hang on to your soft pants a little bit longer is my point.
Now we have to feel sorry for the poor tuxedos sales and rental people.
Yeah.
Who's going to wear those things? Who's been wearing them during the pandemic? All right, Sue, you're back.
With your pants.
Oh God, I hope you continued without me. I'm sorry.
Oh yeah, I went while you were gone.
Good, excellent. I'm having so much
you.
trouble. Wi-Fi is a real problem here. We're trying to get out from underneath it. Anyway, so to finish up the college kid, it's really just not going the way it has for years for kids, where they start college and very quickly have their people. And this is a really social kid who never has trouble making friends. So I feel very badly that they lived through like their junior and senior year of high school with like really important growth stages. And they may have been hit like in the groups of the hardest, they may have been hit the hardest. And then my last one I wanted to say is we go around the table like many families do and say what we're grateful for. And one of my kids said, I'm grateful for anxiety meds. And there was another family over and I felt really, number one, glad that she has anxiety meds. And number two, glad that her generation hopefully doesn't feel any stigma around it. And that is what her gratitude is. And she doesn't have to hide that or be uncomfortable about it. And she just boldly went out there and said it. And I was so proud of her. So I don't think we're back to normal. I don't think there will be a back to normal. I think we're embarking on what the new world looks like. And I pass it to Mindy.
Thanks, Sue. Well, I was one of the odd men out that thought we were talking about reentry after Thanksgiving. But I think in thinking and listening to what everybody's saying, first, I think reentry is always hard. I can remember 100 years ago when we had moved from Connecticut to New Jersey, and I had my group in Connecticut 2 hours away. My friends, my kids were very, very young then, and I can remember going back for a girls' night, driving the 2 hours. We were still fairly new in Jersey, and going out with my girlfriend, staying the night, and hating to come back because that was my old life and I loved it. And I was comfortable in it, comfortable with my friends. And I think that was when I first heard or used the term reentry. And I think what we were talking about here after Thanksgiving was everybody's home, you're comfortable, you're eating lots of great food. No one's really worried about, health and calories and just enjoying all that pie. And all of a sudden it's like, okay, Monday, back to work, back to school, back to that. Reentry is hard. And I think if you look back over the last, this whole pandemic, as we're talking about pandemic and going back, how many times have we kind of gone in and out, right? First, we were in for 2 weeks. It was just going to be 2 weeks. Everything shut down. And then it was extended. And then over the summer, I'm trying to remember, it seemed to get better, right? Even without vaccines. And then it got worse. So we went back and then vaccines came and it got better, but then they didn't really. Now it's worse, breakthrough. So I think if you think the reentry, the amount of reentry back and forth to what was, what will be, okay, we're good. No, we're not good. We're bad. I think it's just really hard. I think it's really hard on everyone. So I think reentry, it's not perfect. It's messy. And I think it's up to us how we deal with it and how we help our kids through it. I mean, this is life. Life is messy. We're all messy. It's not easy. Reentry is not easy. So, I have no answers, but that's my observation is it is tough. And I think it's up to us as parents, how we deal with it, how we help our kids deal with it. Kindness, grace, all that kind of stuff, non-judgmental, I think is really, really important because it's messy. So that's my, and it's not easy. So that's my 2 bits for today. I don't know if it makes much sense to anyone, but it makes sense to me.
It not only is it helpful, Mindy, but it highlights the fact that you were a social worker.
That too. But yeah, it's how we choose to deal with it. So Jessica, I'll pass it on to you.
Okay, before anything, can you guys hear the truck doing loud things outside of my door? Okay. All right. It's slowly getting quieter, so I guess that means I can talk. And I actually have 2 things, because the first one I didn't even think about until Sue was talking about, the college kids. So I went to college at the same school that both of my brothers went to. So we all had some overlap. And I ended up getting lunch with my younger brother for like the first semester. And because he didn't really find his people until he joined a fraternity, halfway through the year. I guess it was around spring is when they started doing all the recruiting. And I was just thinking I don't think he would have had nearly as great of a time without that. And I'm like, how is fraternities or sororities, how is that even going to work, nowadays? Like, it's big crowds of
exactly
people.
The way it did before, Jessica.
That's fair. I mean, I also wasn't in either of these, so I'm sure it'll be.
Yeah, no, these kids they're it's going strong.
Okay, that's good to know. But then, so on the flip side, I feel like I haven't even re-entered because I never really left in the first place. I've been working from home since, I graduated from college. So there's never really been that much of a change for me. But then at the same time, sometimes like those moments will come up that like before COVID, I would have been happy to go on a plane and do this and do that. And now like, my regular everyday schedule hasn't changed because almost everything I do is online, virtual, on the computer, and all of my friends are vaccinated, so I'm cool with them coming over. But then it's like my cousin is getting married in India, and I mean, I've always wanted to go to India. I think that sounds like the coolest thing ever, but I can't go on a plane ride for 16 hours with a bunch of strangers I don't know. And it's one of those, like, again, my life feels pretty normal both, before COVID started and after COVID started, but at the same time it's those like big events that suddenly I'm reminded like, oh, I have to actually like sit down and think through the pros and cons of going to another country, and like the potential of like, what if I have to quarantine in a foreign country who speak a language that I don't know. I don't know. It's so weird having that, like, it feels normal until suddenly it doesn't. And that's all I got. I don't know who I need to pass it to. I guess Sue.
Did everybody speak? Okay, so Kamira, tell us who you're interviewing tomorrow. Yay, we remembered.
Yay! So tomorrow we're speaking with a mom. Her name is Colleen Stevens Porcher. She's going to tell us what it was like mothering, parenting her teen through gender transition. Colleen's family was profiled in the film They Know Not What They Do. It's a fascinating story, and you should all listen because it's new terrain. It may not affect you, your family immediately, but it's affecting families around you, and hearing their story and hearing it from the parents' perspective, and also learning what we can do to make her family more comfortable is really a worthy conversation. I'm excited about it. But also check out that film, They Know Not What They Do. You'll see her family in that, but you can see her tomorrow, 10:30 a.m. Eastern Time, live on our YouTube channel and Facebook page.
Excellent. Okay. Anybody have anything they didn't share that they thought of about re-entry after Turkey or after life? And it's a wrap. Thanks everybody for being here. We will see you next Monday.